All right, guys, on today's episode, we're going to do a little bit of a flow, a bit of a full body flow with you, really, because we're going to work and teach you, the correct posture and form that you're going to take, not just through this workout, but not just through our whole series, but the way you live for the rest of your life, the way you walk, run, jump, do anything. This is going to be maybe the most important hour that you'll do in this whole series. I believe 95% of injuries, maybe more, 99% of injuries that people come to me with every single day are preventable if all major joints were stable, strong, and we're in the correct postural position. So we're going to do a bit of a full body flow for the next 30 minutes. We're just going to we're going to work all major joints from the wrist, shoulder, deep core, knees, ankles. And what that's going to do is going to transform the way you move around Earth. So many people are really scared of being on land, so they're always on the bike or in the pool. We want to get you to be able to move so well that you're comfortable and thrive on land. So to start with, like all of our sequences that we'll do in everything we do, we're going to start with a breath work. And there's just a couple of cues that I'd like you to stick to when doing your breath, because it's going to enhance the effects of it. So for you guys that are more advanced, you don't really want to sit like this. You don't want your knees up high for your breath or your meditation. If you're really tight, you're not going to have a choice yet. We're going to open those up through the series. So ideally, you want the knees level with the hips, so if you can. And I'm a little tight today, been a big week of exercise, so I'm having to really just push that down. You can put a bolster pillow under your butt and you'll get a little bit higher, and it's going to be much more comfortable for long periods of breath or meditation. Some other things we want to sit through in our breath or meditation is a nice straight spine. We want to avoid this hunch. You start hunching, you're going to get maybe even spasms through the back muscles as you go for long periods. But it doesn't mean we're stiff and tense like this. It's relaxed, soft, but open through the shoulders. It's that yin and yang. It's loose, it's relaxed, it's fluid, but it's still got the yang. It's still strong. And when we breathe, I want you to think about the correct way of breathing is to breathe laterally. We normally breathe up and down, so every time we're breathing, just imagine we're creating space, we're opening up the breath. So just do a couple of those with me. And see, I'm not really moving. Just 5 in, 5 out. But see, the essence of my breath is opening. It's getting me nice round shoulders. We're trying to avoid this and the rounded neck. So just nice, long, straight line from the base of your spine to the back of your head. You can go hands open, flat. You can do a closed circuit here as well, which is what they'll do in the East. Not really a big issue, but just good posture, expanding, opening. When we open up the breath, we open up the posture. When we open up the posture, we improve the breath. They work beneficially to each other. So lateral wide breath. Beautiful. One more. You can breathe out. Always generally try and breathe in through the nose and out through the mouth, or you can go nose and nose. All right, let's roll over and begin. We're going to start with our wrists. As anyone moves into a movement practice of mat Pilates, yoga, animal movement, calisthenics, most people struggle with sore wrists for a period until they do the prep work. So we're going to start just in a tabletop position here and just start getting the wrist used to having some pressure over them. So I might just start nice and light, rocking forward and back. The further my shoulders go over my fingers though, now there's some pressure, now there's some strengthening. I'm stretching it, yes, but I'm also adding some strength around the wrists. And we can work our wrists in many ways. So they're in extension right now. We can work them in flexion. It's quite difficult to do, getting the straight arms. And again, just getting them used to a little bit of pressure, a little bit of force. We can start externally rotating them, go side to side. We can externally rotate them even more and go back and forward. And then you can internally rotate. Very hard to go much for that. It becomes a real shoulder exercise. And we can go left and right. So just have a play with all those. Fingers forward, forward and back. Fingers to the side, left to right. So we're stretching and getting a bit of pressure. And this is just kind of like a warm-up that you'll never not do. Like if I'm ever doing upper body in any fashion, I'm always doing this stretch. Just it's good for ongoing wrist health. And you can kind of wind around if you want. And the more pressure and body weight I'm putting on it, the better over time. This may irritate you early days. But what we also want to do is strengthen this whole region. Most people have very sore wrists when they do everything because they're wrist heavy. So they're in a plank, everything's just loading. Look at the wrist, it's loaded. Everything's just sinking into that. We want to create the opposite of that. We want to get nice and light. like that, which I'm going to talk you through. First step, we need to have very strong fingers, hands, forearms. So some little things we can do. We'll just lean over those wrists like we did before, and the further you lean, the harder. And we're just going to do 10 wrist raises. And you should feel that in the bottoms of your forearm, around the wrist there. 6, 8, and I've got a fair bit of pressure on that. I'm starting to hurt. 10, great. Shake it out. Get those wrists relaxed. Now what we're going to do, so we worked a little bit of forearm, is we're going to work some more actual fingers. So this one's quite difficult, especially for girls with nails. You're going to have to work around this. See, I'm in the very tips of my fingers. Now, if I want to do a nice easy version and I've got very weak fingers, I can just do little push-ups in this tabletop position. I get a little better. I bring my knees back. And if I get really strong, I can come into full push-ups, or if you want to go Bruce Lee style, you do it on one finger. So this is going to give you some strength on those fingers. So find your groove, find that right spot. And again, you always want to be strengthening your fingers. Okay, the hands, the fingers, the wrists, they're all got to work in unison to protect that joint. Okay, so that's how the whole body works. When we're trying to protect the shoulder joint, we're getting everything to work around it and fire every time we use it. So every time you use your wrist, I want you to think about hand and finger activation. And in yoga, they'll often get you even in a down dog, which we'll go through now. So step back into a down dog, not worried about your technique. Try and scrunch up the mat. You obviously won't be able to do that. But when you scrunch the mat like that, see how the pressure is now relieved from the wrist. It's now, these are like webs that are taking that pressure. All the energy, instead of the energy locking there, and we've got sore wrist, sore shoulder, it disperses with those webs. That's what we want to think about. So another good exercise to strengthen the fingers and the forearms, not many people's favorite, especially if you're new to it, is 100. So we're going to practice with our hands going all the way in, all the way out, hard as you can. If you just do this, it is not doing much at all. So we're going to go for 100 of these, and I'll turn my shoulders on for this as well, and I'll get a nice shoulder joint activation as well. So let's do this together. In, all the way, let's go. 10. Strong shoulders. 20, 30, breathe, 40, 50, only halfway, stay strong, all the way in and out, 60, 70, 80, all the way as you fatigue, all the way, 90, hard as you can, out and in, and relax, and just build awareness. Where did that hurt most? Was it forearms, starting to feel it in the fingers? And you always want the fingers strong, loose. So that's step number 1 for the wrists. Some exercise for you. You do that every day for a couple of weeks. You're not going to get wrist soreness again from what I've seen with most students. From here, let's move up the body now. So the plank is one of my favorite exercises to fix, because no matter how many trainers, I'd say 99% of personal trainers completely get this wrong, and we're just loading wrists, loading shoulder joint, and loading our lower back. So the high plank is how I can kind of really see how anyone's moving. Most people, this is their plank after 5 seconds, 10 seconds. So a couple of problems. My hands aren't on, so my wrists are very heavy. My shoulders aren't on, so my shoulders are already sore. And my core's not on, so my spine's feeling a lot of it. So this is not a core exercise. This is a 3 major joint damaging exercise, in my opinion. So first up, we want to create space in the shoulders and hands. Push through the ground and get my mid to high back as the highest point. Okay, so my hands are very active. Look at my fingers, might be hard to see. All the energy is going through my fingers as I push. There's no pain on my wrists or shoulders. I'm trying to imagine that I'm creating space, and I'm creating space. While I'm creating space in that shoulder joint, the new muscle, imagine this, visualize this, that the muscle is building around to create that. That's step 1, 2. Step 3 is to not let that lower back dip, okay? This is why so many people have that pelvic tilt, loading the spine. We want it up there. So my mid-back, see my glutes are loose, my mid-back is the highest point. I want you to hold this and see where you struggle. Most people they're doing a downward dog with this. Your bum should not be the highest point. Your mid-back, you may need a mirror to master this movement. Space is all I'm creating here. What else I'm trying to focus on, keep holding, is my core comes into the back of the spine. I'm turning all this anterior on to create a neutral spine. Nearly all of us sit all day in the overarching spine, which means the core is off. This is training that opposite. So I'm tucking those abs into the ceiling. Loosen those hips off. And if you want to make it even harder, you loosen the feet and go into a tiger. And hold, press, create space. The other thing with a tiger is your mid-back will most likely collapse between the shoulder blades. We need to work that up and create like a turtle shell back. Go a little longer. And this is just something, again, I will keep in my repertoire as a warm-up, even as just an in-between sets, to get nice and active and make sure I'm active through the hands, the wrists, the forearms, all the way around the shoulder, the deep core, and I'm going to protect all the major joints in this top half. So you can master the plank. We're going to eliminate a lot of issues because let's talk about the back now. So most people spend most of their day, because of the way we sit, with a very inactive core. So the pelvis is tilted in the anterior and the core is off, the spine is loaded. And this is how we walk. This is how we stand. This is how girls pose. This is how we do everything. This is how we sit. It's off. And all that load just sits on the spine. And anytime we've got instabilities around our ankle, knee, hip, shoulders, it all ends up here. And they've linked 96, I think it was, % of back pain in Australians and Americans, was the study I read, was linked to the overarch. So we need to turn that hip, tilt that back, neutral spine, very Pilates-esque, get that core tight, glutes on. These two are now protecting the lower back. Most people with lower back pain think they've got weak lower back. They probably do. That's not the issue. The issue is this doesn't fire down this TVA, glutes don't come on. This is giving me my rock solid core. Another thing to think about with your core, this is super important, is think about a pillar that's load bearing. A pillar is always dead straight. This is the strongest position. It is never, you never see a pillar with a curve. So this is what we want when we walk, neutral spine. When we plank, not the overarch, neutral spine. You're gonna have an extremely strong obliques, core. Your abs do very minimal with this, it's everything else, TVA. So even let's just go through a basic posture now and observe your own posture. Generally your shoulders will roll in, because we've been texting, typing, driving. We wanna pull them back. And again, we're active through the posterior, opening up. Number one, making sure our chin is not tilted forward like most. This is a problem in 99% of people. Nice straight line. Strong, strong, tuck the chin. Shoulders open. So posterior shoulders, well, for lack of better words, are on. Glutes on, core on, everything active. So whenever I'm doing a yoga pose or I'm finishing my yoga sequence, I'll always just check in and readjust my core. And even when I'm walking, and you can do this on the mat, is you want to tuck this tailbone, squeeze the glutes, squeeze the abs when walking. Okay, so you can just do this on your mat now. And you want to be so light in the way you walk. Most people, even the way they walk, wonky into all major joints, leaning into the back, the knees are unstable, ankles are unstable. We're about to fix that next. But strong core, strong glutes, open shoulders, proud posture. This is how we want to walk when we're going down the beach, around the office, around the house, and this is also how we want to stand. And most importantly, this is how we're going to plank, how we're going to push up, how we're going to lift. One last exercise on the upper body. I want to teach you to do a push up properly. Most people push up terribly, nothing's active, and they just do a little tendon bounce. And they wonder why they get these burning knots here and they don't build any chest muscle. So we can do this on our knees. With our push-up, we want to engage everything from the lats to lower me down, the shoulders, the chest, the biceps, everything is active. Slow, just to 90 degrees, little pause, lock. Make sure my back doesn't collapse. So up tall, we're going to avoid dipping, loading the spine and the shoulder. No, we're going to engage the lats to lower me down, protect the shoulder joint. Core is raised to the ceiling, lock. That is the correct push-up. You're going to try 3 or 4 of those, and all you're looking for, chest activation, lat activation, rear delts, everything is on. It should be on the entire time, because if the muscle's on the entire time in the press, here and here, the joint is never loaded, the muscle's always working. Versus fast ones where the joint probably does more work or more damage than anything else. So let's do a couple more, and it's all just about that muscle-mind engagement, and watch your lower back. This is how we push up. This is how we plank. We're always creating space. Length, relax, and you can relax. And that'll help fix the core, shoulders, the whole 9 yards. We're going to move down the body now. So we've talked about the overarching back. How do we fix that and turn all this on? There's no better exercise, in my opinion. I prescribe this online for people and fix backs almost in a week or two. As long as the back hasn't just been strained, I probably wouldn't do this right away. So you need to know thyself here. But the biggest problem with low boat exposes everything. Low boat is with my feet, you know, my top tips of my toes are a foot from the ground. And what most people will struggle with, if you don't have the strength here, you're going to overarch the back like this. There's a problem. We've turned the core off, the spine is taking the whole load. So what we're going to do is imagine this is the most important. This lower back is glued to the floor. That's all I care about. And I'm going to hold that, and as soon as the anterior weakens and this happens, we don't let a second of that happen. So let's go, let's see how far we can go in 40 seconds or so. Some people need to drop every 5 seconds, come back up. Eventually, you want to be able to do this for at least a minute, minute and a half for a nice strong core. Here. TBA, my back is glued to the floor. Hip flexors are having to work as well. Everything is working together for neutral spine. Look how my back is actually in neutral here. Feels like I'm arching, I'm not, it's neutral. This is the position we want to build, and you will build a rock solid whole region here. Last 5. Drop whenever you need to, do not push through the pain here, and relax. That exercise is great because it forces this on. As soon as you feel the arch, release, and we're going to build, you'll build great shape through the abs, the obliques. One of the best ab sculpting exercises, also happens to be the best for your posture, so it's a win-win. We're going to come up to standing now, and we're going to do a sprinter exercise. That I've seen them do this with Olympic sprinters, NFL players, and it's amazing how difficult the technicality is to get right. So how else do we fix this overarch? The great thing about bringing the knee up in sprinting or any exercise is now my spine's neutral. Very hard for me to bend the back in that position. So knee up activates the core, and it's why sprinters always have great physiques. So a lot of our training is very sprint inspired. Shoulders open, power through the shoulders, hip flexors on, neutral spine, strong core, strong legs. So what I want you to practice, raising that knee above hip height, foot at 90 degrees, toes facing slightly up if you can. Get nice and level and imagine you're sprinting and create a nice straight line. Everything should be on train tracks or thereabouts. And you're just going to hold this just for 15 and see if this lags. And what's happening here, hip flexor strength, core on, protected neutral spine, shoulders on. You go for another 10 and just hold. I'm already starting to feel it in the hip flexor a little. If you're not trained, that may start to dip. 3, 2, other side. Let's go for 30. Just squeezing it, active. It's an active exercise, not just hanging. It's a sprinter exercise, like so. This will help your ankle stability, hip flexors, deep core on. And what I want you to observe is this is the right neutral spine. This is how I'm looking in a mirror right now. My heel to shoulder, back of my head, one straight line. That's why we love sprinter exercises. And relax. Another thing we want to be able to do at will is be able to do the anterior tilt to posterior. So one of my favorite ways to do that is to widen the legs, tuck the tailbone, tilt. So we exaggerate it. Just practice engaging, tuck the tailbone, we're tilting the pelvis. Bad posture is what I would call that. That's the lock. How do I get here? Lock here, glutes on. And just do a couple of those. Just get used to tucking the tailbone, exaggerate it, squeezing those glutes together, overarch, tuck, tilt. So I call this the duck back, squeeze. And you want to have so much connectivity to your pelvis, so much neuromuscular connection and body-mind awareness that at any point you want to protect the spine, we lock it. Boom, it's protected. I can release it. If I want to go into a deep stretch, I can release it for certain poses in yoga. But I want to have the awareness, if I'm in a high lunge warrior, I can let it go and arch and have a nice stretch, or I can tuck it and turn it into a core stabilization exercise. So super important, because knowing how to do that is going to affect everything we do later as well. One other thing we can do while we're here is just a good morning, squeeze and engaging the glutes. Nice flat back, squeeze the glutes together. The glutes drive the hips forward. Contracting, and the glutes are still on for the eccentric part of the movement. And this is a good time to practice your breath is now. On the down, on the easier part of the movement, we breathe in. On the harder part, we breathe out. And we should always sync it. And this is the same if we're lifting on a push-up. So you can practice that with me. Pull back on the in-breath. This is very Qigong-esque. You might have seen it if you've done any Eastern practice. That's the same, that's how we want to move. So that's the deep core fix. So everything you do, we're going to get back to this later because we use it for everything. Next up, we're going to turn into a nice high lunge warrior. I'm going to turn front onto the camera for this one. Now, the other big problem people have is very unstable hips, knees, and ankles. When they lunge, this is all over the place. When they do a warrior, high lunge warrior, any of the warriors, we're unstable ankle, unstable knee. What's happening? If my ankle's rolling in, there's no awareness of contraction. Look at the pressure on my knee, hip, back. We've got a zigzag of problems. We're going to change the way we lift and see the lunge, lock the foot. So if the foot does collapse and you've got flat feet and you roll in, I'm going to bring awareness and build the energy to the outside of my foot. Then I'm going to make sure the knee is faced directly for this exercise over the ankle. And I can just slide back, and now I'm going to activate. Quads are active, hammies are active, glutes slightly active, and even if doesn't matter what warrior I'm in, we want the stability. So I want you to find your nice high lunge warrior. You can go hands in prayer, high, and you can play with different depths as well, but all I'm worried about here is building a rock solid foundation, getting used to that, feeling strong and grounded. And how do we get that? The muscles being on, protecting the joint. This is going to build all the stabilizers into the correct positions. As we get more advanced, we can float up, and to keep this knee still, I have to engage the quad. Still, you can come up all the way if you like. Quad active, keeps it still. If it's not active, watch what happens. Just a little instability there, okay? And this is how most people live. They walk, they run, and the problem with squatting is we hide our instability. So just keep doing that pose, building. You can start to do this with dumbbells eventually, which we will in the session. Up high. All I'm focused on in a reverse lunge is keeping this stable. Building rock solid stabilizers to protect the knee. So I just naturally, everything I do, it's always locked, protected. I run, I sprint, I'm active through the quads protecting. Where most people, the way they walk and run, I'm like, it's no wonder you're injured running. Running is going to expose all of it. Let's go to the other side. Sit in your nice high lunge warrior. Plant that foot. We always start from the bottom up, flat foot. If it's caving in, the knee will help that. And just observe which muscles are on that are not normally on. I can feel them all on through here. I train like this every day, but I remember when I started, you can feel all these new muscles build to protect rock solid joints. So everything should be on train tracks from the hips, shoulders, and then as we get more advanced, we do want the shoulders nice and level as well, and then we want neutral spine. So if we're really getting technical the whole way up, foot strong, knee, quad strong and on, joint protected, core on, hips protected from the legs and the core, spine is protected from the core because I'm tucking the tailbone a little, shoulders on, everything is protected. We go into a nice hold. Once you're feeling good with this, float it up, squeeze that quad, slow back. I was even a little wonky myself, that one. Squeeze. Actually easier with weight, I find. So it gives you that bit more stability. So all we're doing is building awareness. Your calves may even be on longer than usual. Balance. Fixing all our instabilities from the foot up. Couple more. Squeeze. I want you to get used to the whole body engaging to protect the joints. Relax. Another one I want you to practice is, because we're going to finish with the ankles, is how does someone move very lightly, effortlessly? It's because they're strong up here. Look at a dancer. They've got the dancer feet, strong calves, strong feet, strong ankles. Hold on yards, strong quads as well. So what we're going to do to strengthen these, you can even do it in a high lunge warrior, is all we do, raise up. And I'm pretty stable, but most of us when we start, you'll get the wobbles. So float into that again and just raise. You can hinge forward, make it even harder. And then you can do little pulses. And you can just observe all the strength I'm building through here to make me a lighter mover. Like we're doing with the wrists, we're doing it with the hands. Other side, just want you to go through these examples with me. Up high, I can hinge forward. Whoa, even got to focus, get active. And you can do some reps. You don't need to do many, you just need to get the muscles firing pre-exercise. We can also do that with squats. So with that, when I'm squatting, well, we can do an air squat. So watching here on a 45, or I'll come side on. We can start in a squat position up here, just nice, easiest position. Come up high as we can on the toes. Come off the body is easiest, leaning forward's easiest. And as we slowly straighten up, I'm working a lot of every joint here, or not every joint, but the knees as well. But I'm always just on my tiptoes. And here, I'm building all the stabilizers around the knee and the ankle. So just play with your squat hold. You want to fail. You want to get used to failing gracefully. Lower yourself down. Come back up. You want to make it a bit easier. Tilt forward. A lot of people struggle to get their ankle even a couple of centimeters off. We need it up here so we can become very light in our movement. So that's pretty much all I wanted to take you through as far as the activation. Let's just go through some dumbbells very, very quickly, and just you can use a very light dumbbell, it's just for form and activation, to see what that feels like. So keeping neutral spine in mind. The row is one of the biggest exercises that people make a mistake in. So traditionally, obviously, you don't want to have a back like this when rowing because you're going to strain your lower back. So what everyone normally does is overcompensate. The problem with overcompensation is now we do what we're doing with the plank, and just the core is off, and we're hanging it, loading the spine. We actually want neutral spine. So I'll just correct my form. Yep, right there. My core is firing. Keep my shoulders still, so I don't let my shoulders hang. There. The posterior is still on. So just do a couple of reps. And if you're new to this, you're going to take a little bit of time to neutralize that spine. So I want you to do 10 very light reps in that row. Find the neutral spine. Don't let the dumbbells hang all the way. Pull the shoulder blades back. And just go through that movement pattern. Why a lot of people don't like it is you won't lift the same weight that you can do when everything's off because the core has to work. But this is going to build you a rock solid core, so much strength through that. Very, very effective exercise. I've already showed you the push-ups, so we won't go through that again. But as we move up, why often you'll see us do a single leg shoulder press? Same reason. Most people shoulder press as it gets heavy. We lean back, load the spine. Shoulder muscles are off here. So I've got to get through my tendons. See, my tendons are loaded. So I'm loading the tendons here to get to that next rep. I put a leg up, same as all the exercise before. Now I've got neutral spine. I can't lean back. And same as the push-up, squeeze with the rear delt, slowing it all down. Now I'm shoulder protected. I won't go all the way down. Up. Working a lot of balance, but I'm engaging there my posterior, protecting the joint versus fast and slow. So try just 5-10 reps on each side. And all we're worried about, core engagement, posterior protection engagement. Don't go all the way down. You can have a little pause at 90, which we'll show you in the series. And then proper breathing is like so. Just do those on each side, and same rule applies. Nice flat back. Even same when doing, not that we do a lot of back squats, but even on a front squat, we want to avoid that overarching. Core strong. We don't need to go all the way down to deep. We'll talk about that during the series. Neutral spine, core on, and with dumbbells at the front, you'll build a lot more core. So we're going to take them back for a seat to finish. But as you've seen, all we're focused on is getting the ankle stability. Quads active to protect the knees, hip flexors active, and core in neutral at all times, anterior firing, everything protecting the shoulder, wrist, create space, become very light. And to finish, we'll just come into that same breath. Get those knees down if you can. You might be up here, that's fine for now. 5 in, 5 out. We'll breathe in together. In, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Close. 2, 3, 4, 5. One more on your own count. And you want to be nice and loose, soft but strong. And that is our movement prep, form, intro session done. Super important. You might even have to go over that a couple of times because mastery of these little things, I'm telling you, is the magic. Get active through the hands. They energy disperses. Same with the feet. And through all that lifting, through the way you run, do absolutely everything in this form and you'll be injury-free, bulletproof the body head to toe, and just thrive on land. See you in the first episode.